What did I just do? I'm fixing my, what is this? Why, is that what is that? Is that normal? That doesn't look normal. Hi, how are you? I'm just figuring things out while what is that? Okay, that's normal. What is this? That's normal. I didn't even know I could do that. Hello, hello. Okay, adjusting. Go away. Okay, thank you for joining. Hopefully everything is that. Ooh. Hi Danielle, how are you? Yay! Hopefully you're good today. I'm glad you're here. Chicago. Hello, thank you guys. Hello. I am well. Hope all is well. Your way. It is. Thank you for asking. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Hello. Are live. Okay, we're going to talk about California and their electric cars. This whole thing is hilarious. It's actually not hilarious, but you know. We'll talk about what's happening in California. And I know I talk about California a lot, but the reason I think that, yes, I have a connection to California, but the reason I think it's so important to talk about is I really do think California is the rest of the US 5 years in the future. If we continue down, look at everything that this administration is doing, look at the trajectory of progression of progressive politics in America. California is the future. They are 5 years ahead of, I would say, the progressive agenda, and we see how that is going. And the newest progressive virtue signal that Gavin Newsom did, and yes, it is a virtue signal because because it's impossible. There's no way that this is going to happen. So basically what happened was I had known that this was going to be happening for a long time. 2 years ago, in the year 2020, when everything was going on, Gavin Newsom announced, he basically signed an executive order announcing that he wanted to ban the sale of gas-fueled vehicles in the state of California by the year 2035. So you can obviously have one, but you can't buy one in California, and I'm pretty sure you can't sell one either. So that was his plan. Keep in mind, California has a population of 40 million people, and the power grid is terrible. So if you're driving an electric car, you have to charge your car. So you need electricity to charge your car. Electricity comes from fossil fuels. And a lot of the parts that we need to make these cars we have to import them from other countries. One of those things is you need lithium for the batteries. And where do those come from? They come from giant lithium plants. Where are those? China. Other places that do not have the same regulations that the US has. The same goes with drilling, you guys. Like, I was thinking about this the other day. So I decided to do some research. I'm like, what are the top countries as far as environmental regulations, right? So the US is one of the top 10 countries as far as we have the strictest environmental regulations. There are other countries on that. And I'm looking at that top 10 list. The US is in the top 10 as far as like the strictest environmental regulations. But where we get our oil from, I didn't see them on that list anywhere. That's like Russia, Saudi Arabia. I know Biden was talking to Venezuela. They do not have anywhere near the environmental regulations that we do. So wouldn't it make more sense, even if we wanted to go full green, and I've said this before, but this is just one more layer on top of the stupidity as to what we're doing, and that people actually believe this. So if we really cared about the environment, we know that we're not going to be off fossil fuels tomorrow. We know that we're not going to be off gas-fueled vehicles tomorrow. So why not, in the meantime, would we do more drilling in the US, allow us to be energy independent, allow the price to go down, allow us to help the rest of the world by providing them with oil that is highly regulated and is not coming from a terrorist country that's funding terrorists? Because terrorists around the world are largely funded by oil. It makes zero sense. And it's more environmentally friendly, if you look as far as like the regulations, to get it here from the US than it would be Saudi Arabia, Russia. Just look it up yourself. All the information is there. So there's that. But let's go back to California. So Gavin Newsom, he wants to ban the sale of electric cars by 2035. Well, here's the thing. This was the joke that I made. So this was, I think it was Tuesday or Monday that this was announced. And the reason this came back up was because it was finally codified into law. So I guess he signed the executive order and the announcement was made again. Okay, we are now codifying this. It's super duper official. And my joke was, look how bad the power grids already are in California, that they have to do rolling blackouts. They've been doing rolling blackouts since I lived there. Imagine what's going to happen when 40 million people have to plug their cars in. Imagine what's going to happen then. That was Monday or Tuesday. Fast forward to Wednesday, and California had to make an announcement that due to the heat that's coming and the power grid, they need people to avoid charging their vehicles. So this is exactly what happened. They're saying it's 1 week after. Okay, maybe it's a week. Even still, 1 week after California announced a ban on new gas-powered vehicles, officials issued an extended alert telling residents to avoid charging electric vehicles as available power supplies diminish. The western United States is facing a likely prolonged and record heat wave that could lead to temperatures as high as 115 degrees Fahrenheit, according to the National Weather Service. As a result, the California Independent System Operator prepared to handle elevated electricity demand and warned residents that it would likely issue voluntary emergency conservation notices over Labor Day weekend. The agency's first flex alert, which recommended voluntary decreases in energy consumption from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., released on Wednesday and extended to Thursday. During that time, consumers are urged to conserve power by setting thermostats to 78 degrees or higher if health permits, avoiding use of major appliances, and turning off unnecessary lights. They should also avoid charging electric vehicles while the flex alert is in effect. Imagine if everyone is having to drive electric vehicles and this is happening. Okay, and here's some fun facts about electric charging. Charging an electric vehicle requires twice as much energy as a refrigerator each year, according to the data from the Department of Energy. Researchers from Cornell University College of Engineering have warned that a rushed transition to electric vehicles will overwhelm the nation's grids, barring robust upgrades. Yeah, I mean, we're already seeing that, are we not? They're literally asking people to avoid charging their electric vehicles. So we're already there. Imagine this huge push. What is that going to do to our grid? And don't forget the people that are sick and elderly in their homes that need heat, they need air conditioning, they need electricity to charge to keep their oxygen going. Like, there's a lot of reasons why people need electricity to stay alive. And that's one of them. So you just imagine overwhelming the power grid like this. And I was reading a story too. If anyone can find it, let me know. I tried to find it right before this live and I couldn't. If you watch Tim Pool, he actually did a segment highlighting this story earlier today, but it sort of goes in line with what we're talking about. Not for the life of me find it, so if you find it, let me know, or if you feel like you want to like confirm it and Google it, do it. I cannot remember what state it was, but it was Xcel Energy basically froze people's thermostats. So there was a period of time where people could not change their thermostat in their home. It was locked at 78 degrees. It happened to 22,000 people. I believe it lasted a few hours. Think about that. I don't like that. And that I don't think that was in California either. Yeah, so but that if you are someone like if you're, someone like me that's not that scary, I'm pretty young and healthy, but you know how terrifying that is if you have an oxygen machine, or if there's weather outside, if it's really cold, if it's really hot. But yeah, look, I cannot remember where that was. Guess if you got Wi-Fi devices in the home, then people can get into it. Yeah, and here's, you guys, my little tinfoil brain was going yesterday while I was looking into this stuff, and Tim Pool actually brings this up too. That was in Colorado. Interesting, because Colorado, I lived in Denver for a few years, and I remember I moved there. We didn't have air conditioning in our house. We had 2 window units because we had a brick house, and they were telling us that you don't need it if you have a brick house, that it stays pretty cool inside. And given that it's the desert and the air is pretty dry, it cools down a lot at night as well in Colorado. Well, we happened to move there right at the beginning of the summer, and that just happened to be a very unusually hot summer. That sucked. I was like, oh, really? We don't need AC? Because I feel like we do a lot. But we had a window unit. It was so bad that I would go in the bedroom, because we had first, the only window unit was in the bedroom. That's the one area I'm like, I have to be cool when I'm sleeping. We had a window unit in the bedroom, and I would just like sit in the bedroom with the window unit on and shut the door and just live in a little icebox. Okay, so but this was what I was thinking about. So I lived in California at the beginning of the lockdowns, and I was living in Venice Beach when the original 2 weeks to slow the spread. I was in Venice Beach and was actually moving from Venice Beach more inland to West Hollywood. I was moving, I think it was the last day of the 2 weeks to slow the spread, because I remember getting to my new apartment, getting everything settled. I had just finished moving all my stuff. I get on my laptop and it says there's going to be 30 more days to slow the spread. So that day that I moved, it was announced that we were going to do 30 more days to slow the spread. And then it was like, what, a year later or something? But yeah, it was 2 weeks to slow the spread, and it was 30 days to slow the spread. And then, everything changed. But I remember being in Venice Beach during that time, and it felt so dystopian. At first, they started laying people off. They said stay home for 2 weeks. Everything was fine. Like, people in Venice Beach were pretty chill. They were still outside doing things, but it was chill. It was actually kind of nice because there were no tourists, so it was just locals. And at that point, there was a very big homeless issue, but it definitely exploded months into the pandemic. And I think that's because the police weren't doing their walkthroughs and cleanups like they used to do because of COVID. But I remember it feeling so dystopian. I remember everything was cool, and then all of a sudden they started super locking down. Like, all of a sudden you couldn't sit on the beach. You would get told to get off the beach by a lifeguard or a helicopter. Imagine you're on the beach and you see a helicopter over. They shut down the boardwalk. They put sand in the skate park. They roped off the pier. Like, everything. You could not be outside. And that's when it started feeling really dystopian. I also remember being in Los Angeles. I remember Eric Garcetti, the mayor of Los Angeles, making an announcement that if you had anyone over at your house, that he was going to, the city of Los Angeles, or the county, whatever, was going to shut off your water and or electricity. So they're going to shut your things off if they found out that you were having people over during this time that we were supposed to be home. I believe it was the same week. If it wasn't the same week, it was the same month that infamous George Floyd protest was happening in Hollywood, and you saw that drone footage overhead where there's like 20,000 people marching. So that, I hope you remember that. If not, look it up. It was massive. So they marched from Hollywood to West Hollywood where I was. And I remember he had already made that announcement about the water and the electricity. And one day, what I would do every day is I would go for a walk. So I was going for a walk, going to get some cat food, and that protest was entering my neighborhood. It was 20,000 people entering my neighborhood in the middle of the lockdown. Anyway, my point is, Eric Garcetti praised that. He was out taking pictures with them, and there were no masks, and he was praising that. And it was just earlier, either that month or that week, but it was the same time frame. You know what I'm saying. He announced that he was going to shut off power and water if he found out you were having people over. And I'm saying all of this because think about it. What if we had the thing about electric cars, the one thing that makes me, other things make me really uncomfortable. One thing that makes me really uncomfortable is they can be turned off by, I guess, the company. I mean, they're powered by chips and all this technology. Like, they can be turned off. So what if we have another pandemic one day and they're like, I'm sorry, you have to stay home. We need to slow the spread. And what if they just turn off everyone's cars? What if they turn off, now you can't leave, you can't go anywhere. You're not going to listen, I'm going to turn off your car. I kind of don't like that. That's just me. That might be my paranoid mind thinking, but just thinking back to how dystopian everything seemed during that time, and how I never thought that I would see someone, a mayor, say that he's going to turn off your water if you have people over, while simultaneously, by the way, encouraging 20,000 people to just like walk down the street. Makes sense. But yeah, think about that. I will say this. Think if that was like a police chase, I could see if that was like one area where that would be actually maybe useful and pretty cool. If someone committed just a heinous crime and there was a big police chase, you just turn off the vehicle, everyone wins, except the criminal, but we don't want the criminal to win. I was talking to my boyfriend about this earlier, and I was like, if I was in a police chase, my car would probably just run out of gas, because that's how silly I am. So I don't think it would matter for me. I would do something silly like that. Not that I would ever be in a police chase, but I would just screw myself over. I wouldn't need any help by anyone. But I mean, think about that. And think about, some of the things that they're doing. I never thought I would see the day where I have the President of the United States, I have the press secretary basically saying that because I identify as a Republican, or because I vote Republican, or because I supported the former president, that now I am what's wrong with this country. I am the bad person. I am a threat to democracy. So it sounds crazy when I'm like, I'm a little uncomfortable that other people can just like turn off your car. And why would they not use that after everything we've seen over the past few years? I never thought I would say that, and that does sound crazy, but it also sounds crazy that the president would be thinking that I'm what's wrong with democracy. I never thought my own president would shame me that much. It's scary. It's weird. It's not a good place to be in. Okay, let's see what else they're saying, though, about this whole thing. So today, most people charge their electric cars when they come home in the evening, when electricity demand is typically at its peak. If left unmanaged, the power demanded from many electric vehicles charging simultaneously in the evening will amplify existing peak loads, potentially outstripping the grid's current capacity to meet demand. And he's right. That's when you're coming home, you're watching TV, you're making dinner, maybe you're doing laundry, you're showering, you're getting the kids to bed. Like, that's when people use their power the most. So that actually makes sense that people would power their cars at night, which would further just exhaust. Nevertheless, Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm and other top Biden administration officials have urged the rapid adoption of electric vehicles to compensate for high costs at the pump. Gas prices surpassed $5 per gallon in early June before subsiding to $3.83 per gallon as of Tuesday, according to AAA. The real truth is that as long as our nation remains overly reliant on oil and fossil fuels, we will feel these price. Oh, this makes me so mad. Let me repeat this. I'm sorry, you guys. The real truth is that as long as our nation remains overly reliant on oil and fossil fuels, we will feel these price shocks again. This is the Energy Secretary, by the way, people. This is not going to be the last time. The next time there's a war, the next time there's a pandemic or another hurricane, these extreme weather events we are experiencing, they will impact the access that we have to fossil fuels. Did we not just say that? Where does energy come from? It's an electric vehicle. Where does electricity come from? It comes from fossil fuels. That's the Energy Secretary basically trying to gaslight. I don't know what she's doing here. And this is what's wrong, because a lot of people just look at this. They don't really research where does electricity come from? Where do the parts to make these vehicles come from? What's the benefit? What are the benefits? You know, what's the risk assessment? Because anytime you use any kind of energy, there's going to be a risk assessment. There's going to be something, but you're, okay, what's the better of the few? The real truth is that as long as our current nation remains overly reliant on oil and fossil fuels, we will feel these price shocks again. Yeah, you use fossil fuels to make electric vehicles. I use a kite and key to get my electricity. That's probably the smartest way to go at this point. Risking your life, yeah, it seems pretty, at least hey, that means you're ungovernable. That's what I like about you. Be ungovernable. The push for renewable energy also occurs as European nations, many of which are shuttering nuclear plants while continuing to discourage fossil fuels, face soaring natural gas prices ahead of winter months. Desperate citizens of Germany are cutting down forests and stockpiling firewood in preparation to warm their homes, while citizens of Poland, it's not going well. So somebody said, the point is to make private vehicle ownership out of reach for the middle class. They want you to have to rely on public transportation, which they control, to move around. They also want to eliminate suburbs and force everyone into cities, again, for control. I don't think that's far off. I do think a lot of the push for electric vehicles is control. I don't know why. I think all of us in California should turn on every possible. Someone said, I like this person. Okay, someone said, I think all of us in California should turn on every possible appliance and charge every vehicle as possible at the same time and shut the state down to prove a point that windmills and solar panels aren't going to cut it. Oh my God. Someone said, if I lived there after work, I would plug in my EV, take a 40-minute... Okay. Edward Badlands said, if I lived there after work, I would plug in my EV, take a 40-minute shower, drain my electric water heater, wash and dry my clothes, and cook a turkey in my electric oven while toasting a loaf of bread. You know what, though? I will say this, and I obviously don't like what is happening right now, but I will say it does I think in times like these, hi Tannen, I think in times like these, it does sort of make you think, okay, what can I do to be more self sustainable? Like I was talking to my mom this morning, I was like, when I move away, I want to make sure I have a place where I can have a decent garden. So that's one of the things I wanted to do. I'd rather just grow my own vegetables and not have to go to the grocery store and be like, why does it cost $2 for a bunch of cilantro? I know it's an herb. I don't think it's technically a weed, but it's also like a flavored weed. $2. It wasn't even the organic kind. But, I think some people, if they do bike a little bit more, if you do walk a little bit more, if you do maybe get some chickens, if you do maybe grow your own vegetables, if you do maybe really think about what you're buying and spending at their grocery store and things like that, I don't think that those are bad things. So I do think that's one positive thing that maybe gets people thinking. I know people, and when I lived in Los Angeles, I never had a car. I did not have a car. People told me it was impossible. They were like, you cannot live in Los Angeles and not have a car. I just refused. What I really intended on doing was I actually moved there with an old car, and then I got rid of it. I just took it to get me out of there, got rid of it. And then I thought to myself, you know what? It's really nice not paying for a car. It's nice not having the insurance payment, the car payment, paying for gas. If something breaks down, I have to fix it. So let me just see how long I can ride this out for. And I didn't have a car for like 5 years, and I was totally fine. I was happier. I was in really good shape. And I'm not advocating for not owning a car. I will be, I do drive a car. I have a car now. I'm not advocating for not having a car, but what I'm saying is I think we get so comfortable. I had so many friends, and the reason I was able to survive without a car is because I looked for an area. Okay, where can I walk to? Where can I walk to the grocery stores, maybe some restaurants, some shops? Like, where can I walk? That was really important to me. So I found a place where I could do that in Los Angeles. I found a part-time job that was close enough for me to walk to, and that's what I did. And then when I needed to, I Ubered. And some months my Ubers were a little more expensive than others, but it was never more expensive than a car payment plus insurance. And I didn't have the stress of driving around. I could listen to the music, I could read, I could work on my laptop while I was in the back of an Uber, and I didn't have to worry about gas prices. And there were some days that I would go maybe a week or two without getting into a vehicle. Not everyone can do that, and I'm definitely not advocating for like not owning a vehicle, but it did make me think because I would walk to work where my friends would drive. Like I had friends that they would literally get in their car and drive 2 blocks when they could have just walked, or they would drive. To me, if it was like a mile, I'm like, well, I'm walking. Not only did I get more exercise, was I in really good shape, didn't have to pay for a gym membership because I walked everywhere, and that was pretty healthy for me. I loved it. Did you get in the Uber and say, please don't talk to me? Oh my gosh, I was so one of those people. Yes. I I don't think I ever said, please don't talk to me. I'm not that harsh, but I did not like to be talked to in an Uber. Once in a very blue moon, I would chat a little bit, but I just did not want to be talked to. So I would have my headphones on when I got in, even if they were not on, and I wasn't listening to that. I wasn't listening to anything. I just didn't want to. Well, I didn't mean you don't have to ask that. Just wear a head. Yeah, that's what I just wear a headset. And the thing for me is because I didn't drive, I took Ubers a lot more than probably the average person. Like even if I went a period of time without taking them, just in general, I took a lot of Ubers. And sometimes I was just coming home from work or from whatever. So I just after a while the small talk gets a little repetitive and old. I'm like, dude, you don't need to talk to me. Just yeah, I was in diva mode. But everyone told me they were like, you cannot live in Los Angeles and not have a car. I loved not having a car. There were times where I got a little bit antsy and I did want to drive. I would just rent a car, which I think now renting a car is really expensive. I haven't rented a car in a long time. Yeah, and what you have to think about too when you're a girl getting in an Uber and you're by yourself and your Uber driver is like, "Oh, is this where you live? Is this where you work? Do you go what are you going here for?" To me that feels just being like a woman and being alone, that just feels a little invasive. Like it's one thing to say, "How are you doing today?" Like, "How was your day? This is the weather." Like, it's one thing to have small talk like that, but as soon as you get in the car when someone is asking you, "Is this where you work? Is this where you live? Where are you going? Why are you going here? Do you have a job here?" Like, I'd rather not answer. Yeah, it feels a little unsafe, and you just got to be careful. There's nothing wrong, I think, especially the way that crime is right now. I don't think there's anything wrong with being a little closed off when you need to be closed off. And I think too, like as women, we feel so guilty. Like we feel like we have to be so nice to everyone and so accommodating to everyone. And so we want to be like extra nice to everyone, but you just can't do that. You have to be safe. Yeah, it is creepy. I'm glad you guys are saying no, it would happen all the time. Like they would take me one place I couldn't walk to, I had to Uber all the time, was when I went to my agent's office to audition because just the walk wasn't really safe and it was just a little bit too far and just the way to get there. Keys, wallet, phone, gun. Um, but I remember this happened several times because they were in like a big office building. And I remember several times being driven there by an Uber driver. They'd be like, "So do you work here? What are you doing here? Why are you going here?" I'm like, "I don't want to tell you." I would just make stuff up. Like really boring stuff up. I don't remember what I made up now. Yeah, that's what I should have told him. Okay, next story. This is pretty crazy. So this is just about how, the national report card. So this is indicating we have the worst math and reading scores in decade. So I want to look into what's going on. And this is one of the reasons I'm so against things like CRT and gender ideology. Our kids are not doing well in school. And can I just tell you, I was looking, so I was doing, research. What am I going to talk about for the live? And I was looking. My code name is 7-Eleven. I was in 7-Eleven. I'm generally a very healthy person, but I do believe that sometimes you just need to eat a funnel cake, or sometimes you just need to have the nachos at 7-Eleven. And I was at 7-Eleven the other day and I saw the nachos because I hadn't been in so long. And I also hadn't been to this section where usually if I just go in there, I just go and get a drink and then I come back out. So I never saw the section where they have the nachos, and I saw the little nacho machine and I was like, it's glorious. It's beautiful. I wanted to get some nachos, but I chose not to. So maybe one day. But I do. I think you need a little bit of junk food in your life. Not too much, but a little bit. Moderation. Enjoy yourself. Okay, scores in math and reading declined at the worst level in decades for students during the pandemic, according to a new assessment. My favorite thing too, I used to do this in the summertime. If it's like a really hot summer day in the afternoon, I would go and see a matinee, either by myself, maybe with my mom, and get the nachos and just pig out. I loved it. My mom loved penny sweets at the 7-Eleven. Oh, they did. The one that I go to, well, they have a bucket of like the little bubble pop. They have that up front. They have these little like dog treats where you can pay 15 cents and get a dog treat, and then they have all these little things. Okay, the National Assessment of Educational Progress, also referred to as the nation's report card, released a report on tests and administered to 9-year-old students nationwide. Average scores for age 9 students in 2022 declined 5 points in reading and 7 points in mathematics compared to 2020. So it's even worse. That's even worse than 2020. You would think it would probably be the worst. Actually, maybe that's not true. I would think it would be the worst in 2020 and 2021. because you're going in a little bit strong. You're coming in fresh from being in the classroom, and then all of a sudden you're doing Zoom classes. It's wild. I talk to a lot of parents around this area, and a lot of the schools now actually offer internet classes as opposed to going to school. They didn't do that when I was in school. The only time you could take an internet class is if you needed to make up credits. So if you had to go to summer school, you could opt to do an online class. I never liked those. I didn't do good in them. This is the largest average score decline in reading since 1990 and the first ever score decline in mathematics. The assessment compared reading and math scores from the 2020 with the results of long-term trend assessments in the winter of 2022. Black students were impacted more severely in math scores in comparison with white students, according to the assessment. In mathematics, the 13-point score decrease among black students compared to the 5-point decrease among white students resulted in a widening of the white-black score gap from 25 points in 2020 to 33 points in 2022. Reading scores dropped less in comparison between pre-pandemic and post-pandemic assessments. Educational experts are concerned over the study and similar assessments that have revealed the pandemic's impact on education, claiming the problem could cause decades-long problems for the nation. This is why I don't agree with that stuff being in the school. Let our kids stick to reading, writing, arithmetic. Maybe there could be a discussion if kids were just doing incredible in all of these areas, but it doesn't seem like they are. It seems like almost in every single city and now nationally, kids are not doing as well in school. And you have these teachers, and this isn't every teacher. There are great, amazing teachers out there. But you have these teachers that are pushing gender theory, they're pushing CRT, they're pushing all of these things that have nothing to do with reading, writing, and arithmetic. I was looking at, I think it was the gender unicorn or something that they give to kids. I don't know how old the kids are, but I'm thinking even a teenager looking at, even myself as a fully functioning adult looking at the gender unicorn, it was so confusing. I was like, what is this? What are all of these things? Imagine that's being taught to a kid and they're in school and they're learning to read, they're learning math, whatever it is they're doing, and then they're trying to figure out all this gender crap. Like, what am I? I have to figure out this and this and this and this. There's your biological sex, and then there's your gender, like how you present yourself, and then there's your attraction in it. It's too much for a kid, man. A study by the National Center for Education Statistics found that 72% of public schools over the past year reported higher rates of chronic absenteeism, defined as a student who misses at least 15 days of school a year. A separate study by EdWeek Research Center found that absenteeism rates were significantly higher in schools that were completely remote during the 2020-2021 school year than in schools with in-person learning. Yeah. Someone said, when you suspend education for a few years, teach CRT and gender ideology instead of math and reading, this is what happens. Our kids can't read, but they can tell us they're most enlightened generation in the history of the world. But I can't read good. You know, I was talking to a kid. I think he's 17, so he's still in high school. And he was telling me that he has in his school kids that they kind of dress up like furries a little bit. They dress up like cats and they meow to each other in the hallways. And they wear like furry ears to school. it was crazy to hear that too, because I always do these stories where I talk about this stuff happening in schools, and then to just, talking to, this random kid who's in high school in this random town, and this is a pretty red area that I'm in right now, and he's like, yeah, some kids in high school are just meowing in the hallways and wearing cat ears, and they identify as cats. Which, when I was in high school, I'm pretty sure that was like a sexual kink. The whole furry thing, I think it is. It's a sexual kink. And now it's just like in high school, just in school. And I was like, your teachers are cool with that? To me, that's what I think of it. I think of it as that kink. And he was like, well, yeah, what are they going to do? I'm like, well, I guess you're right. They can't really, if you want to wear cat ears and meow, it's not against the rules. They don't have litter boxes, though. They do not have litter boxes. I did ask about this. Okay, so here's another story, and this is the last one. Sorry, my nose is itchy. When I hear stuff like this, so this is about Bank of America, and it surprises me how we still fall for this stuff, because this is how this is one of the reasons why we had the financial crisis and the housing bubble, was that they were just giving everyone loans. This is why tuition at universities are so high, because we lowered the threshold to give loans to expand this ability for people to get loans regardless of credit or income or any of that. That's one of the reasons. So it seems like every time we lower the standards to get more people to get loans, maybe some of whom can't afford them, we end up in a situation that is not good. And on top of this just being overtly racist and I'm pretty sure illegal, and I don't know how they're going to implement this, this is always a recipe for disaster. And I can't believe that Bank of America or just regular people aren't able to identify this as of yet. But it says, Bank of America is under fire for a new mortgage lending program geared specifically to Black and Hispanic homebuyers. The loans, to be made in select minority communities throughout the country, require no down payment, no closing costs. Although white homebuyers in those neighborhoods who meet certain criteria are eligible for what? Oh, let me read this again. The loans to be made in select minority communities throughout the country require no down payments and no closing costs. Although white homebuyers in those neighborhoods who meet certain criteria are eligible for the program, the North Carolina-based leader said it's designed explicitly for Black and Hispanic people. Our community affordable loan solution will help make the dream of sustained home ownership attainable for more Black and Hispanic families. And it is a part of our broader commitment to the communities that we serve, A.J. Barkley, head of neighborhood and community lending for Bank of America, said. The lending scheme called, and that's exactly what it is. Don't get it twisted, you guys. I know it's overtly, we're like, this is racist. It is racist. It's also a scheme. It's trying to make them appeal to a very liberal demographic that is going to be like, oh my God, this is so awesome. It's going to get them to appeal to people and say, we're actually doing this for you. But when you give people loans that they can't pay back or they got too easily, that doesn't always work out too well for everyone. The lending scheme called the Community Affordable Loan Solution is being rolled out in certain, is being rolled out in certain neighborhoods in Charlotte, Dallas, Detroit, Los Angeles, and Miami. It has no minimum credit score requirement. Red flag. No minimum credit score requirement. No down payment. Was it no interest? Yeah, red flag. That's a lot of red flags. It also has no minimum credit score requirement, and buyers won't have to pay mortgage insurance. Okay, which buyers who don't put 20% down typically must pay. Wow. California attorney Harmeet Dillon said the program could potentially violate her state's UNRRA Act a 1959 law that prohibits businesses from discriminating against consumers based on various factors, including race, color, religion, ancestry, and national origin. She said it could also violate the Federal Consumer Credit Protection Act. In California, this would seem to violate the UNRRA Act, also federal Title IX. Bank of America announces zero down payment mortgages for Black and Latino homebuyers. Steve Cortez, a former CNBC, Fox News, and Newsmax business commentator who also served as a campaign spokesman for former President Trump, called the program racist. Hey, Americans who don't happen to be white, you bailed out the Bank of America when they and every other big bank nearly collapsed the economy. Now, Bank of America pays you back with an explicitly race-based lending program that overtly discriminates against white people. Had enough? One person said, as a transracial woman, I am... Oh, I think this was a joke. As a transracial woman, I am excited that Bank of America will be providing me and other transracial Americans. This is clearly a white person. As a transracial woman, I am excited that Bank of America will be providing me and other transracial Americans with the opportunity of owning a home without down payment and closing costs. Transracials everywhere need to take advantage of this opportunity. Bank of America has a checkered history with minority communities. Countrywide Financial, a subprime lender it bought in 2008, was fined $335 million for allegedly charging Black and Hispanic home buyers higher interest rates than whites. Wow. Yeah, this is a really good comment. Hold on, let me read it for you. He says, we bailed out the Bank of America and other big banks because of the Fed regulations that they had to give a loan to unqualified borrowers if they gave one to a qualified borrower. Half of the loans were to unqualified borrowers. This will be no different, and if Bank of America comes knocking at the door, tell them no more bailouts. Absolutely, this is what happened back in 2008. They were giving loans out to people who are not qualified. They're literally just doing exactly what they did to get in trouble in the first place. On top of this being racist. Obviously, that's the most jarring. Right? Someone said, if only we had an historical example of what happens when lenders make themselves feel good by giving out bad loans to folks who are less capable of paying those loans. ... Whoa. I mean, the thing is, like, the whole system of like having a credit score and stuff like that, I do think it seriously needs to be improved, and I definitely have my qualms about the entire system. But I understand it to the point of, if I'm a lender and I'm lending you money, I need to see somehow that you're responsible and that you're going to be able to pay this money I'm loaning you. Or if I'm renting you, I need to be able to know that you're responsible and you can pay your rent, or you can, pay your payments on time. That's the reason you have things like credit scores and, interest rates. You have things like down payments and stuff like that. So I can show you, yes, I'm a responsible person. I can pay this off. I'm putting money down up front. I'm serious. I'm invested in this. That's why all of that is in place in the first place. So why would we not just want to, this is my problem. I can't stand the entire educational system. Why wouldn't we want to teach people at a young age how to be savvy with their money and how to invest their money and how to purchase everything, instead of just giving loans to people that are not qualified to pay them back? Because if you have really bad credit and you are an adult who's well into adulthood and your credit is crap and you have nothing to put down on a down payment, regardless of skin color or where you come from or anything, that's a huge risk for a bank to take. And I would much rather teach individuals to be savvy when it comes to money and to be put in a situation where I want to be set up where I can be successful. I don't just want something handed to me so I can go screw it up later. It's like a person that wins the lottery. They win millions of dollars all of a sudden, and most of them usually end up broke again. You know, most people, you can live comfortably off $1 million for the rest of your life. You know, you could maybe retire off that. You could live a very comfortable life, but that's not typically what happens with people that win these huge sums of money in the lottery. They all end up broke again, most of them, because it's not the money that's the issue. It's typically a mentality that's the issue. It's their habits that are the issue. It's the fact that they can't control their impulses. There's issues that are bigger than money. And if someone is well into an adulthood and they don't have a little bit of cash put away, they don't have at least a decent credit, that's a big risk. I want to see this comment. So issue bad loans at higher rates and target communities of unsavvy, irresponsible consumers who wouldn't qualify for any loan outside of a pawn shop. Bundle those loans and assign them to Shell. Okay, whatever. But yeah, and we've been talking about the student loan crisis. That's why tuition is so high at universities, because that was the government stepping in and saying, okay, we want to give more people access to university, so let's just expand access to these student loans. So it doesn't matter the income of these individuals, the credit score, anything, we're just going to give them this loan. And and they inadvertently set up a system which made it incredibly easy and incentivized universities to raise their prices to just uncontrollable amounts. So, yeah, seems like a good idea. Seems like a few lawsuits waiting to happen. Seems like maybe another crisis brewing if this thing takes off. I don't know. Anyway, you all, I will actually be back. I will be back in Named Earl. I'll be back later tonight, probably around like 8 or 8:30 if you want to join again. But thank you guys for hanging out. I wouldn't say inadvertently. Yeah, I that's touche. Good point. Good point. Yes, please hit the like if you can before you leave, and thank you everyone for joining. I had a really good time. Yeah, I'll see you guys later. I'll be back around 8 or 8:30. I'll put it in the community tab. Have to prep for family. That's what, I don't know where Eva. Oh, there she is. Hold on, I'll get her before we leave. Where is she? She has Eva, look at the camera. You're so camera. Yeah, that's not gonna happen. She always wants to sit on my lap, except for when I'm right here. Yeah, it's not gonna happen right now. She has an arch nemesis that lives outside. It's an orange cat, and they were facing off today on the porch, but she didn't get in a fight, which is good. Please don't get in a fight. All right, I'll see you later, guys. Thank you so much. See you later tonight at... Yeah, she's in diva mode. Bye.